Well, hello everybody. This is Hal,
And this is Melanie.
and we want to welcome you to another episode of Making Biblical Family Life Practical.
You know what we plan to talk about tonight, Hal, is really practical
Yes.
because
Uh,
we're going to talk about how do you cope with adult kids living at home, and it's challenging.
yeah, yeah.
It's challenging when they're just coming home from college.
Well, they've been off
Because
in a
they
dormitory life. They've been managing themselves,
they walk in the
and
door carrying this big bag of dirty laundry,
yeah.
which they flop in front of the washing machine, and they go upstairs and they sleep until 2 the next day. And
Well, I can hardly blame them,
well, yeah, the
but
little kids are like, why does he get to sleep all day? And you know, it's hard
mm,
not to get annoyed, but I have to remind myself, look, they just went through exam week. He's exhausted. He deserves a
mhm.
chance to rethink and to get things back in the schedule.
Yeah, and right, and they're a little bit out of practice. I remember one of our guys coming home from college, and he has got seven younger siblings, like all the way down to the little one in car seats. Suddenly, driving the van on the way back from church is very stressful
Because
because
he's
he's out of
not used to
practice.
the commotion. He's not used to
Right,
that.
right.
And so
So,
yeah, it's hard enough when they're coming home and it's temporary and you know they're going back.
right.
But what if they're there for months? And yeah, that's becoming a whole lot more common now. I was kind
Yeah,
of shocked at those statistics you found when we were preparing
yeah.
for this broadcast. That the Census Bureau found that 34%
Mhm.
of 18 to 34-year-olds live at home with their parents,
Yeah, 34%. That's more than one out of three
and not
of that
just
generation.
for a few months. Over 90% of them have been there at least a year.
And that's true. And I don't have a number on it, but the study found that for the most part, that families are saying, well, okay, we're good with this. We're all right with it. I mean, it didn't sound like it was super stressful, but that may just be what they were willing to tell people in the survey because, people
It
do
is
ask it.
stressful.
You know what, it is a real thing. And
Well, there's
it,
such
mhm,
a balance, and
mhm,
I see why people are doing it. The economy is tough, and the
mhm.
job market is really really tough for 20 somethings.
Yeah, it has been. And this is an interesting thing. I'm the family historian, okay? I'm the one that keeps track of all the genealogy stuff. And as I'm looking back through the census records 100 years ago, it's not unusual to find the adult kids still living on the farm, working with their parents. It's not unusual to find the newlyweds living with the in-laws for a period of time or something. I mean, that's historically, families take care of themselves. They take care of the
Yeah,
extended.
and they
So,
ought to be taking care of themselves.
right.
But we've got a changing culture because people are getting married a lot later than they used to.
And there's a number of reasons. I mean, you could do
Yeah.
a whole another
Oh yeah.
episode about that.
But okay, so 1976,
Yeah.
I'm looking here. 75% of men and 93% of women were married by age 30. So
Basically everybody. I
can
mean,
y'all guess how many there are now?
I bet maybe.
In 2014, it's half.
Yeah.
32% men and 40% women. That's really low.
People are
Are
delaying
married by
marriage.
30.
People are delaying marriage for a number of different reasons. One of them, the economy's been rough. A lot of people are graduating from college with just boatloads of debt,
Student debt.
which is not a. I mean, that's a new development since we got out of
Well,
college.
yeah, the average
Mm,
college graduate has $28,000 worth of debt. Your whole college education cost less than half of that when we were in school.
right, right. And so,
And so,
so,
yeah,
so those are. I mean, those are real things. Those are real factors that we're having to deal with. And so, yeah. So a lot of people are finding that maybe in the previous generation, young people grew up and moved out and moved on, and that was just expected, but it's kind of gone back now. And
and
so,
I think that people are ill prepared to deal with it, Hal, because it's not what we expect. Because that may not be what our parents' generation did. That may not be what our
mm,
generation did. Although, we lived with my mom for a few months when we were transitioning between jobs and we hadn't
yeah.
sold the house where we were.
Well, I had taken a job at a plant that was about 100 miles from where we lived, and the housing market was kind of slow where we were moving from. So you were you were staying in the house, showing the house in one town, and I was going to work in the other town, and it was too far to commute. So,
And let me just say that did not work well with
yeah.
4 children, 8 and under.
Well, no,
No.
that was a stressful
Mm-mm.
time. That
It
was
was
a
hard.
stressful time.
So we moved
But
my mom, and you know what? That was hard too in a different way. In fact, I think we handle it differently now if we had to do it again. But and
yeah,
we've had adult kids live with us at different times for months, a few months here or there as they're
between jobs, between apartments in
yeah.
transitional states and all.
It takes some navigation on both sides.
And we're glad to have them. We're glad that, to have the family under one roof again is, I mean, that's great. That's a blessing. But it is a change. It is a transition. It is something that you have to figure out how you're going to work that out.
Well, you
And
do
so,
because it's really important.
mm,
It's really important because the relationship issues that you can develop living under the same roof are going to follow you when you're not living under the same roof again.
well, that's one of the things that we really emphasize a lot when we're talking about parenting. We really emphasize that with folks with teenagers to say, you realize that the relationship that you're building before they leave home and go off to college or start a career or get their own apartment or whatever, the relationship is what ties them back to home. The relationship is what ties them back to your family.
It
So
is.
you've got to
It's
invest
really
in
all
that.
you have.
Well, you can't compel anything. It's
Yeah,
it's the
what?
matter of the heartstrings.
Yeah,
And
when they
so,
leave your home, relationship is it. It's all you got.
right,
If you don't have that, you don't have anything now.
right. So now you've got a different stage of relationship, and you're right. It's, what brings them back, and then what's the relationship they take away, because they probably aren't going to stay there forever.
Yeah,
They're probably going to, they'll be there for a period of time.
yeah.
It's bounded in some way, and then they're going to move in again. And what's that relationship going to look like when they move out the second time? You will. So,
So what prompted this
mhm,
is a friend of mine in one of my Facebook moms groups this week is frustrated.
mhm,
She's frustrated with her 19-year-old who's still living at home,
okay,
and he's working on his education, and he's
mhm.
not a bad kid, but just they're having a lot of relationship challenges navigating this. How do we handle having an adult in our house who is not in charge of the house?
You know, I think you're glad to have them home, and you want to feel like you
Well,
can tell
yeah.
your kids, "Hey, you've always got a home here, dear." I mean,
Well,
you want to be able to say
I
that.
said that the other day to our son and his wife, who
Hmm.
the house they're renting is being sold out from under them, and they're trying having a hard time finding a place they can afford. So I said that
Hmm.
to them. Hal, I said, you can come here. You are always welcome here until you find something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you want to provide a safe haven, and that's part of being family. That's part of being parents. They'll always be your son or daughter, and so,
but
but
it's easier said than done because I know it was a long time before I didn't feel like when I was 9 years old when I pulled up my mom's driveway.
well, I remember I heard an older lady saying that she had been to visit her elderly mother, and she told me that she said, whenever I turn into that driveway, it's like I'm 9 years old again. And I didn't press, because I don't know if she was saying I feel like I'm 9 years old, or if she was saying my elderly mother treats me like I'm 9 years old.
Or both.
It could have been both.
My mom has been really wonderful to us. But
Oh, she's awesome.
she's
Yeah.
wonderful. But I remember a time
Yes.
when this was many years ago. She was standing in my kitchen.
Hmm.
We were cooking grits, and she opened it up and she started to add salt. And I said, Mom, I already added salt. And she said, how would you know how much salt to add? And I said, because I've been married for 10 years and living on my own for 14. And if I didn't know how to add salt to the grits, I'd be in trouble.
You've been cooking for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
was, we lived so far away, she hadn't spent much time with us at that point. And
Isn't
it
it?
was hard for her to remember that I was a grown woman with several children, and
Yeah.
was used to running my own kitchen.
Well,
It was just hard to remember. And it's hard not to, like, okay, so true confession time.
mhm,
I really snapped at one of our adult kids the other day
yeah.
because
Hmm.
he was bickering with his
Hmm.
little sister, who's like, she's
Hmm.
14 years younger than he is.
Yeah.
And I heard a tone in his voice that
Hmm.
made me think of him like he was 11. And I snapped at him like he was 11. I had to say, um, I'm sorry,
Well,
but you'll
well,
have a lot easier time getting along with her if you will remember, and I just
yeah.
had to back up and say, okay, whoa, I
Mm.
need to treat you like a grown up.
Yeah, well, it's a weird thing. I think that we have a tendency to freeze people in place when we're apart from each other.
Yes.
You know, so now you were fairly close in age to your younger brother, but there was 4 years between me and my younger sister,
Yeah.
and so when I went off to college, it's like I froze her at 14 years old. It was like whenever I came home from college, it's like, oh, she's older than I remember. That's
Yeah.
hard to, and I think we could do that with our kids, that they move off, they go to college when they're 18, and we still think of them as teenagers at home, even when they've been out on their own, maybe even supporting themselves for 3, 4 years,
Oh, it's so easy to
and then
do.
they come back in, and you think, okay, now we're just going to pick up where we left off when you were 17 years old, right?
Yeah.
No, well, you can't. You shouldn't because I think that's one of the things we need to recognize as parents. Are we treating our young adult as if they were 12 years old? Are we reverting back to treating them like they were, young, stupid preteens? And on the flip side, I mean, let's be honest about it too. I think sometimes young adults come back home and they feel like I'm safe.
And they
I'm
lose their
back here,
filters.
and they
They,
lose their filters, and they
yeah.
feel like, okay, at least now I'm home, and Mama will take care of
And
me,
they act like they're 12
and they
again.
act like they're
Yeah.
12. And so I think that that's something both sides need to kind of be aware of and watch out for,
Yeah, I
is
agree.
to say, okay, we are now we're now older adult and younger adult. It's not parents speaking to dumb teenager type of time, but rather to say,
Yeah.
okay, we've got to sort this out as older and younger adults that are going to coexist here. I
And
think
that's
that's
hard.
that well.
It means that all of us have to
Hmm.
not jump to
Hmm.
our instinctive reaction.
Right.
That, we all need to be stopping and thinking about what we're saying before we say it.
Yeah.
Increase the filters, not lose the filters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have to stop and say, okay, this is a 25-year-old man I'm talking to. This is not an 11-year-old.
And
And he needs to
yeah.
stop and think, okay, you know, this is this is my mother who I love and respect and have a great relationship with,
Uh-huh.
not bad old mommy who's ruining my fun.
Right. And I think we have to be intentional about that on both sides.
Yeah,
And we need to think, okay, now how would I mean, like, okay, we as the older adults say, how would I talk to a younger coworker? Let's say that I was working in an office and a new staff member came in right out of college and they're 24, 25 years old. Would I treat them like they were my 10-year-old?
hell, I think you hit the crux of the matter right there.
Hmm.
I think we have to take ourselves out of this relationship, which has tons of baggage, good and bad,
Right.
and say, okay, how would okay, if I need to rebuke a friend, sometimes you got to rebuke a friend. Sometimes you need to say,
Hmm.
honey, that's not right.
Yeah.
How do you do that? You do it very differently than you rebuke your
Yeah.
9-year-old.
I
And
hope so.
yeah, if you want to stay friends.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think we need to think about that when we're talking to those
Hmm.
adult kids and say, okay, I need to address them more like I do my friend
Hmm.
than I do my 9-year-old.
Hmm.
And I think when we do that, they're a lot more willing to listen to what we're saying.
Well, there's a whole range of opportunities there, and I think the new relationship actually can be a huge blessing, and it could be a surprising thing. I've seen this as we've tried to make a very intentional transition with our young, with our preteens, and say, okay, we're now going to put you get to be at the grown-up table now.
Yeah.
We're going to be training you and teaching you and treating you as a young adult now. And just during the teenage years, seeing the relationship change is a blessing. But to see, okay, a few years in the future there, and they come back into your home, it's another thing entirely, and it can be a really great thing.
It's a really amazing thing. I feel like our adult kids are our best friends.
Absolutely.
I just love spending time with them. Let's talk more
Mhm.
when we come back
Yeah.
about practical ways to navigate this when you've got adult kids living in your home.
Oh, and there's some ticklish questions too. I
There's
like
some
to
real
get into